This is a change of heart. Because when you have a change of heart, God says, I will put a new heart in you. And he will help us do what he wants us to do. So it entails a change of heart. It's sad, but that's what they came down to. It's really sad, but that's where they were. The prophet Jeremiah had warned them. He had pleaded with them, but they were so stubborn and proud that they didn't listen. You ever feel stubborn sometimes? Ever feel proud? Get all of us. It was about this time that the prophets of Ezekiel and Daniel also, how good can you get? They had Ezekiel and Daniel and Jeremiah all at the same time. Some of the greatest prophets of the Old Testament, and they still messed up. Jeremiah is called the Iron Prophet. You know why he's called the Iron Prophet? Because he was persecuted from the time he was 20 years old until the time that he died at 60. That's why he's called the Iron Prophet, because he stood. That doesn't mean it was easy, but he stood. He was the kind of guy that was naturally shy, which I'm not, but he was naturally shy. He was naturally retiring. And what he really wanted to do was go home and take care of his garden and live peacefully, not have a lot of contact with people, and just take it easy. That's really what he wanted. But God would not allow him to do that. Not only did Jeremiah suffer persecution from his fellow Jews, but he also suffered with them in the very predictions that he predicted. You would think that God would make an exception for him, wouldn't you? So he's like a man who was prophesying his own death, really. That's what he was. That's why he's called the Iron Prophet. And truly he did die a violent death in a foreign country, killed by his own people. That's what happened to him. And as far as we know, in those 40 years, he never won one convert, with a possible exception of his scribe. We don't even know that for sure. A little bit opposite to Jonah. Jonah ran away from God, but God sent him back. He won about 300,000 people in one evangelistic crusade. On the other hand, Jeremiah works for 40 years and gets 0. Wouldn't that be discouraging? What Jeremiah learned about his own people was heart-wrenching, and that's what I want to do. I want to take you through Jeremiah today. He saw in vision the coming war, and he saw what would happen. And this is his personal reaction. And I'm reading the King James here, so it sounds a little odd. And let me explain it first. You know what happens when you get scared? You know what happens when you get angry? Where does the blood go? Well, we lose it up here. It goes to the inside of the body, and you feel it in your stomach. It goes to the inside of the body because it is a natural reaction, because if you get hurt, then you're not going to bleed to death so easily. It's just a natural reaction. So, the ancient thinking about your emotions were that they were right here. Okay, so that's the background to this text. And so he says, my bowels, my bowels. This is from Jeremiah 4:19 if you want to look it up. My bowels, I am pained at my very heart. My heart makes a noise in me. Boy, that would scare me. My heart skips beats. So I have a hard time lying on my left side. My daughter thinks that my lungs push against my heart. I'm not sure what it is. But I can feel my heart beating on the bed when I lie on my left side. I don't feel it otherwise. So you feel that inside there? You ever feel your heart? Well, some of you do. Most of us don't even care. He said, I cannot hold my peace because thou hast heard, O my soul, the sound of the trumpet. And so what does the sound of the trumpet mean? We don't do that in war so much today, but they used to. Think of the American cavalry in the 1800s. We all know the sound of charge. And so he says the alarm of war. His heart went out in sympathy for his people. What a terrible thing that he's going to see through. He had so much sympathy for his people that he didn't even realize their true condition. And so you know what God had him do? He says, if you don't believe me, Jeremiah, he says, I want you to go on a preaching tour. I want you to preach all over Jerusalem, on all the streets, to all the priests, to all the princes, to the king. Preach to everybody. And so he did. You know what he found out? Not even one person would listen to him. They turned their back on him. And so now he truly understood where his people were. Now God gave him a message to preach, and if you want to read this message, it's found in Jeremiah chapter 7 through 10. That's the message that he was to speak. The severity of the situation is seen by the fact that God told Jeremiah, I've never heard this anywhere else in the Bible, but God told Jeremiah, don't even pray for these people. That's bad. I'm going to read it to you, Jeremiah 7:16. Therefore pray not for this people, neither lift up a cry, nor pray for them, neither make intercession to me, for I will not hear. Now that tells me something. That tells me they'd gone past the point of probation. That's why Israel was destroyed. That's why Solomon's temple was destroyed. Because they wouldn't listen. Jeremiah's response to God is found in Jeremiah 9:1 and 2. And this is what he says. Oh, that my head were waters, that mine eyes were fountains of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughter of my people. Because he saw what was coming. It was a terrible thing that was going to come. Oh, that I had in the wilderness a lodging place of wayfaring men, that I might leave my people and go from them, for they be all adulterers, an assembly of treacherous men. He just wished he had a place he could go so he wouldn't have to see what was going to happen. At God's request, Jeremiah went on another preaching tour of Judah, not just in the city, but around Judah. And this is found in Jeremiah 11:6. It says, Then the Lord said unto me, proclaim all these words in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. And according to Jeremiah 11:7-10, they rejected him. They wouldn't listen to him. And even when Jeremiah went to his hometown, Don't you like to go to your hometown? I like going back home. It's fun. Because you walk down the streets. There's a memory on every street. It's fun. This last time when I went back to when my cousin died, I'd walk down the streets. I went back to the 2 homes that are still left where I lived. It's fun to look at those. And all of them have memories. Well, he went back to his hometown, and you know what? There was a plot to kill him by his own hometown people. Not fun. Everywhere Jeremiah went, he faced opposition, he faced persecution, he was misrepresented. Don't you enjoy being misrepresented? He was misunderstood. And he was becoming, what do you think? Discouraged. That's what he was becoming. Jeremiah 12, 1-4 gives his troubled thoughts. So I want you to turn there with me. This is one text that I want to read with you. I forgot my glasses. Well, I'm just going to say it. Righteous thou art, O Lord, when I plead with thee. And then he goes on to say, I don't understand it. Why do the wicked prosper? Look what's happening to me. Look at all these people out there. They're prospering. They sink down roots. They grow. What's wrong? Really, what's wrong here? And then he said to God in verse 3, O Lord, you know me. You know who I am. You know I'm right with you. You know my heart is right with you. What is going on here? So how can it be that I'm having so much trouble? How can that happen? Then God opened Jeremiah's eyes as to why he was experiencing so many problems. You ever wonder why you experience so many problems? You know, there's a country and western song that goes something like this. This guy was late to work several times. And he got out of the house one day and the bus was leaving. And he couldn't make it to the bus. And so he ran all the way to work. And he got to work and they said, well, you're just a little bit late this time. That's it. Bam, he's gone. You know what happens when you lose your job? No money. So it wasn't long until he was scraping everything together just to pay the mortgage on his house. And he finally got it together. They're about ready to close on him. And so he came to the bank. He had his money, and he puts it down on the counter, and they said, I'm sorry, we just closed your account a few minutes ago, and all the papers are signed. He lost his house. He got so desperate that he decided to rob a bank. And so he went in and he held up the teller, and she said, I'm sorry, sir, we were just robbed 10 minutes ago. So you ever wonder why you have problems? All of us have had problems like that. Well, this was God's answer to him why he had problems. Jeremiah 12, verse 5. He says to Jeremiah, if you have run with the footmen, and they've wearied you, Jeremiah, what are you going to do when you have to run against horses? And if in the day of peace you thought you were pressed, What are you going to do in the swelling of Jordan? You know what the swelling of Jordan is? Flood time. Now, I come from New Mexico, and we have the Rio Grande, which goes right down through the middle of the state. The Rio Grande, if you go out there today, it might be 20 feet wide and 2 inches deep. But that is because they put dams on all the canyons up in northern New Mexico. But when I was a kid, they weren't there. And it is true that in the 1800s, the Rio Grande River is actually grand. It was 2 miles wide in flood time. And I have pictures. My dad has pictures. I got the pictures of the Rio Grande River taking out bridges. It took out towns that were by the river, and it would be flooded for 2 miles wide going down through there. Now, that's a river that doesn't lose as much elevation as the Jordan River. You know, the Jordan River comes from Lebanon, where they have mountains 10,000 feet. And in a little over 100 miles, it drops from 10,000 to 1,700 feet below sea level. And if you know anything about rivers, that's a horrendous drop. You can start at rapids if you only drop 15 or 20 feet. But this is a huge amount. So that river must have been really something whenever it was flooding. That was really traveling fast, too. But you know what? The Bible tells us there were a group of guys from Gad. It says they were special forces in the days of David who could handle a shield and sword with either hand. Didn't matter. They were ambidextrous. They were from Gad. And you know what these guys did? There was 100 of them. You know what they did? They swam the Jordan at flood tide and fought a battle on the other side and won. This is when you enter the river here, and 20 miles later you get off on the other side. That was the kind of river it was. And so I want to give you the idea of really what God is saying to him. If in the time of peace you didn't feel good, what are you going to do when you have to deal with something like that? You know what essentially God is telling him? If you think things are bad now, you just wait. And let me tell you what happened to Jeremiah after this. You know what? Jeremiah, in Jeremiah 16, 1-4, I'm going through chronologically through Jeremiah. In Jeremiah 16, 1-4, God tells Jeremiah, don't even get married. He said, because if you do, you know what will happen to your wife and children? They would die violent deaths. So don't even get married. Don't even think about it. So that was one of the things that God already told him. And then the next thing that happened was God asked Jeremiah to go and give a message to the people in Jerusalem. You know what they did to him? They locked him in stocks. You know, stocks, you know, where you get your head one way and your arms another and your legs another, and you have to lie bent over. Terrible position. That's what they did to him. And while he was in the stocks, according to, that's Jeremiah 20, 1-3. While he's in the stocks in Jeremiah 20, verse 7, they come by and make fun of him all day long. Again, God asked Jeremiah to give a message to the people in Jeremiah 26:2. And that time, they would have killed him if it hadn't been for some of the princes who said, oh, no, let's go easy on him. Jeremiah 26, 8, 10, 16. When Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar knew about Jeremiah? And you know what he told his soldiers? If you find Jeremiah, go easy on him. You know, we think that the people in those days didn't really know much, but I think they did. He knew what Jeremiah had said. And he knew Jeremiah was right, because Nebuchadnezzar knew what he was going to do. And he knew why he did it, and he did it because these people were so stubborn. All he wanted was their money. I don't know why they're arguing, do you? When someone says to you, your money or your life, it's kind of stupid not to give them the money, right? Well, that's basically what he did. He was in prison when Nebuchadnezzar came. They let him out of prison, so he says, oh, great, I'm going to go home. So he started to go home, and they arrested him because they accused him of going over to the enemy and threw him back in jail. And you know what happened to him after he got thrown back in jail in Jeremiah 37? Jeremiah 38, they said, let's get rid of this guy. And they threw him in an old well. You know what an old well is like? You ever been down in one? You know, the water's not there anymore, but it's wet. And so he slowly sank into the mud up to his armpits. And you remember Ebel Melech? Felt sorry for him. So he tied all these rags together, and he let him down in the well, and Jeremiah put him around his armpits, and this guy pulled him out of the sucking mud. Must have been an experience. But he finally got him out. And that isn't the worst of it. In the end, the last time that Nebuchadnezzar came back, destroyed the city, destroyed the temple, he left only the poorest of the people there so they could take care of the vines and orchards that were still left. You know what those people did? They rebelled again, kidnapped Jeremiah, took him to Egypt, and when he wouldn't shut up, they stoned him to death at 60 years of age. That's what they did to him. Do we have any problems here today? How does yours compare to Jeremiah's? No comparison? But you know what? We still gripe and complain, don't we? We say, Lord, oh, why? Why is this way? So why, I ask the question, does God allow trials to come to us? Why does he allow? You know why he allows trials? For the same reason that I go to the gym and work out. I haven't worked out in a little while. 2 churches keep me too busy. But if I were to go in there right now and do a whole bunch of exercise, what would happen? I'd really be sore. And you've heard the expression, no pain, no gain. Right? If you don't go through pain, you're not going to do any gain in terms of strength. And that is true with trials also. No pain, no gain. You know what? Trials motivate you to make changes you would never make any other way. All right? If life was always easy, do you think we'd ever develop a good character? Now, I'm going to say something that Santa Cruz doesn't need to hear. Santa Cruz is a neat place to live. The temperature is beautiful most of the time. It can be a 90 or 100 degrees over here, and all I have to do is go over there. And it's back down to 60. Oh, it's wonderful. And that's why on Sabbath, it's hard for me to get over the hill, because everybody over here is going over there. And when you come back at night, it's the same problem. And sometimes worse, because everybody's trying to come back at the same time. But what does it do for the people over there when everything is so easy and so nice and so wonderful? They're spoiled. And they show it. Because, you know, there's a bumper sticker over there that says, "Keep Santa Cruz weird." I'm not lying. And if we can't take trials now, what are we going to do in the end time? And I'm telling you, that's why we go through trials, to make us stronger. That's why we do it. The Bible warns us of a future time in Daniel 12, verse 1. It says there will be a time of trouble such as was never upon the earth. And if you think it's hard now, wait till then. It will be a time when deception will be so bad that if you don't have a connection with Christ, you're finished. Because the Bible says in Matthew 24:24 that even the very elect would be deceived, if possible, but it isn't possible. You won't be able to buy or sell, and then there will be a death decree passed on you. That'll make you feel real good. But you know what? Did they do any different to Jesus? You look at the life of Jesus and you can see what the future holds for all of us. The only difference is, and this is a cool difference, because he died, we will live in the end time. If we fail to meet the trials that we are facing right now, how will we be able to stand then? Can we do that? How will we handle them? If we handle every trouble and trial now in faith, I can guarantee you that you will handle every trouble and trial then in faith. Because that's what it's designed to do, is to change you. And essentially, that's what the Christian life is. Because God comes into your life, you give your life to him, and that he starts changing you at that moment. It's just part of the process. That's really what it is. God is just helping us to be successful in the end. That's really what it is. And God's appeal to us is no different than the appeal to Jeremiah, who said to him, if you can't run a race with another human being, what are you going to do when you have to run with horses? And if you can't stand the peace that you're in right now, what are you going to do when it really gets rough? So the message of God is to us, take the trials that come to you every day now. Take them in faith with God. And you won't have to worry when the end time comes. God bless you all.
Hymn number 530, our closing song for today.
The greatest trial that we'd ever have to face is as if we had to pay for our own sins. But Jesus paid it on the cross. And what I look forward to is when I get to heaven, is being able to ask God, why did these things happen to me? And then he can point it out, a very plain path that we could see, oh, yeah, I see. Because God's greatest desire is to save us. And if the trial saves us, is it worth it? Let's bow our heads. Loving Father in heaven, thank you. Thank you for what you do for us, and thank you for what you allow to come to us that tries us. Lord, I pray that your workings may be in all that we do and all that happens to us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.